Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Well, welcome everyone to today's episode of The Bend, the podcast where we shine a light on the innovators, disruptors, and heart-driven change makers who are bending the veterinary profession for the better. I'm Debbie Boone, speaker, trainer, and champion of veterinary teams. And on The Bend, I talk with leaders who are shifting the mindsets, breaking the molds, and designing a more compassionate, sustainable, and forward-thinking veterinary world. So today I want to welcome Dr. Amy Farcas, who is a boarded veterinary nutritionist. And she's spent her career in a place where clinical nutrition science and the people who love their pets meet. After more than a decade in academic and clinical practice, including running the clinical nutrition service at the University of Pennsylvania, she launched Veterinary Nutrition Care, which was a solo specialty practice that quickly became a real-world laboratory for understanding what pet owners actually need. So what she discovered changed the direction of her work. The traditional nutrition consultation model served these complex medical cases beautifully, but it left a second population of detail-oriented, diligent pet owners. I love that description, Amy, because these are the people who come in with their binders and their charts and their Google printouts, and they want some answers and they want some help. So Amy created Full Circle Pet Nutrition to give them one, and it turns out this is the work she was meant to do. So we're going to talk about Full Circle Pet Nutrition, which is what caught my attention when I saw it. And I was just laughing and telling Amy I think she's the bravest person in the universe to talk about food to pet owners. So Amy, thank you for coming on and welcome to The Bend.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about origin story. I always like to get people's background and how you decided to become a veterinarian. Were you born into it?
I don't think I was. I I'm a kid who walked into a vet clinic as a teenager and was somehow offered a receptionist job, and I got ended up getting to do pretty much every job there was to do in the practice over a lot of years. And I never left. And I think a lot of people say they go into vet med because they don't want to deal with people, but I truly say I came for the pets and I stayed for the people.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often told people how lucky we were to be working with pet owners all the time. And I said, look, you could be working in Walmart and everybody's mad in Walmart, right? So if you think about the people that we work with are just by the aspect of owning animals, highly tolerant because you get up out of the morning and step in a hairball and you just go, oh well, and you clean it up and you move on and you think you got that bulletproof housebroken dog and then you turn around and there it's not. So we're just tolerant of the upsets of life living with animals because animals are always going to get into something and doing something. You went to UC Davis
I did.
and didn't really have a plan of becoming a boarded nutritionist.
No, I mean, I didn't even, if you had told me the day I graduated that I would be doing graduate work or a residency, I would have told you you were insane. My plan was to be a small animal general practitioner, and that was where my heart was.
So what
And
what changed your trajectory?
even what's interesting about this is in retrospect, it makes me feel dumb. But in as an undergrad, I took every nutrition course I could get my hands on, and it still didn't really click. And I had my vet school nutrition electives, loved them. Did my clinical nutrition rotation as a senior student. Not very many seniors do that. Had a great experience. Still, that's fuel for my general practice plan. And during my internship, I worked with an internal medicine specialist who had trained in nutrition, Tim Bowers, one of my favorite people. And just the way he integrated that into his practice and how it affected what his clients ended up doing
Mhm.
as far as caring for their pets, that was what really sunk in as, hey, this is pretty cool. I had already kind of started knowing that my interests were things like geriatric medicine, oncology, that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
so it turned out that my favorites were these complicated, lots of follow-up, hand-holding kind of cases.
Okay.
And so nutrition really was lending itself well
Yeah.
to that, but also it was just such an area that people don't get supported.
Yeah.
That's really what made me think, okay, this is could be where I was going. But by the
Mhm.
time I realized that, it was past the cycle for, residency applications and things like that. And so I actually went ahead and spent quite a bit of time in general practice before I came back to Davis for my residency.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, I appreciate the fact that you, as a specialist, got a good general practice background because I think it's a reality check a lot of times. And we have a lot of people in academia who've never worked in a practice.
Oh yeah.
And it's a different world and dealing with the human aspect. Of course, you had it. If you started with the receptionist position, you get it all at the front desk.
I've done it. I have done it all. There
Yes.
are stories.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I started in the same place. I started as a part-time receptionist and then came left and went to run a couple of retail stores and then came back as the hospital administrator for the practice. But that front desk is just I always say it's the most challenging job in the hospital because you're managing the emotions of people and you're fielding questions that you
Oh,
really don't have enough information to answer.
yeah.
And even if you do, you can't use it appropriately because you've got to say, okay, I can't give you medical advice.
Mm.
I am not the medical team here. I am the receptionist, not just the receptionist, but I am the receptionist.
Well, and
So
you're also managing not only the emotions of the client in front of
yeah.
you, but the team behind you
The
as
team
well.
behind you. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So it is a pressure cooker job and one that I don't think we value enough in our
Yeah,
practices.
by the time I applied to vet school, I don't remember if it was a manual hand filled out application, but it was definitely form fields to fill in with a specific limited number of characters that could belong in this field. But the question was, there's a requirement for some minimal amount of exposure to volunteering or having worked in with animals in some capacity. And I had added up all of my, you know, taken my best guess over the years since I had started working in the clinic, and it was something like 15,000 hours or something like
Yeah.
that. And I see the application is limited to 4 characters. So my application literally reads 9999 for that question, just because I couldn't
You
do
just
any more.
there just wasn't a space enough to put
Yeah,
another character in there. That's amazing. So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about your nutrition background and you did start now your husband is a veterinarian too, is that right? And is he a dental specialist?
mhm,
Yes. So during COVID hits, and you
mhm.
have a nutrition specialty practice that you are running, and then you had COVID, and then you have a kindergartner, and then you're trying to juggle all the balls, and COVID takes the bite out of that. How does that play out?
Well, how it really played out is that I had started the practice in 2014. I was pregnant at the time and got, started out slowly because I was a little distracted and busy to begin with, but got really busy really fast. And it was such an amazing experience to be able to have that validation.
Mhm.
But then at the same time, it wasn't a practice that was really set up to be a sustainable and financially successful practice. It was really an experiment, and we can come
Mhm.
back to that if you want. But I learned that at some point the mechanisms that I had kind of cobbled together to run things, my practice management system was really basic, and it was really just me on my own. And it it was not only a limitation on the practice, but it was frustrating me, and I,
Mhm.
was finding myself not wanting to do things because I had to deal with what I had set up. And so at some point in 2019, I put the brakes on taking new patients and wrapped up everybody that I had in progress and said, I've got to fix some of my systems so that I can make this more viable. And I pretty much the second I wrapped up my last in progress patient and handed that over, I got a phone, sat down to say, okay, now how am I going to fix this? How am I going to make this work better? I got a text from my kid's school that said, we're closing and we don't really know what's going on. This COVID thing, we'll see. Um, so that was March 16th, 2020. Um, so I became a part-time stay-home kindergarten teacher. I had also had some family caregiving responsibilities. And in addition to my practice, I was also the administrator for my husband's veterinary dentistry practice. And as the, breadwinner practice of our household, that was the one that got our attention because as you know, pretty much everything about how we did everything in a
Yes.
vet clinic had to change in
Yes.
2020.
Yes. Yes.
And
And it changed
so,
weekly.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it was
exactly.
like I said, I've never worked so hard, and I felt like I was drinking water out of a fire hose, and I never left my office. I
Yeah,
I was just trying to gather enough information to help the teams out there in the world work through whatever new protocol was coming
yeah,
down the pike because it
yeah.
did change. It seemed like every minute on the hour it was changing, something was changing about it.
That and I spent like hours on the phone trying to track down a shipment of bleach that got lost
Oh gosh.
because I wasn't going to be able to run without it.
Right. Yeah.
So that pause in my practice took longer than anticipated
Mhm.
because I was, doing some other things.
Mhm.
But when I got to sit down and come back to it, I I realized how much of a blessing it was to get to look at it with fresh eyes from having forgotten about some of the minutia that was getting in the way. And that was, I mean, that was really my point of, do I want to just build back what I was doing
Mhm.
in a more workable way, or wait, I see something new here
Mhm.
and I want to do that instead,
Mhm.
or at least in addition.
Yeah.
So that's really where I'm focusing now, is
Yeah.
that something new.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about something new because traditionally when you think about sending anything to a specialist, you're the general practitioner, you've gotten in the weeds in a case and you go, man, this is, above my pay grade or my knowledge, so I'm going to turf it off to specialty work. But what you're talking about, obviously still doing that kind of specialty work, but also just that person who's out there in the universe who says, I want to feed my dog the best. I want to feed my cat the best. I want to feed my whatever critter the best. And I am constantly bombarded by marketing that is probably BS. And I don't know what to believe. And I need somebody to get through all the clutter and all the weeds and tell me what's real.
Yeah.
So that's where you're focusing. Is that sort of
Yeah.
the point here?
Yeah. Yeah. In the 90s when I started in the clinic, it was a different story.
Mm-hmm.
The internet wasn't really much of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Clients didn't come with their stack of printed out things from
Yes.
the internet.
Yes.
The variety of pet food available was so much smaller.
Absolutely.
And the
Yeah.
marketing itself was different. There was
Mhm.
lots of like, hey, my product is good, and hey, no, my product is good, and my product is good.
Mhm.
But what really didn't exist in my at least to my understanding, was this whole idea of, I'm going to market this as, free of X, whatever X item your
Hmm.
is, as if X is bad.
Right.
Everything else on the market that contains X is therefore inferior because, my product is X free
Right.
and therefore better.
Hmm.
And it I think it's this really interesting challenge where people at least now understand that that is happening.
Hmm.
But there's not only X, there's Y and Z and A and B and C that
Yes.
people aren't able to really sort out very easily
Hmm.
which one matters.
Hmm.
And people are smart, and they understand that, okay, all of these can't be right and all of these can't be wrong. That there's some generalizations, there's some of it that applies to me and some of it that doesn't. But there's no structure or framework for them to be able to sort that out on their own.
Hmm.
And what do people do when they can't figure something out about their pet? Well, I ask my vet.
Hmm.
And most of the time, that veterinarian's training, which is medical stuff,
Yeah.
is able to answer that question. So they've always reinforced that. I'll ask my vet, and my vet will know because my vet knows, because they usually ask about medical stuff. But this time they're not asking about medical stuff. They're asking about not they're not even asking about nutrition most of the time. They're asking about the pet food industry.
Hmm.
And so when I ask my vet's going to try and they're going to give a medical answer. But that's not the conversation that that person wanted to have.
Hmm.
And then it ends up being this sort of dissatisfied thing for both
Hmm.
parts. And that's really one of the motivations. That's one of the main motivations that made me say, yes, this is the thing I want to do and follow up and fix, because I hate seeing that. I am such a fan of our profession and the people in it that I so hate hearing a client say, my vet's great. I really love my vet. I trust them for everything except when it comes to nutrition,
Yeah. For some
right?
reason, they think that, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it probably even more than I have, that we're getting some kind of kickbacks from the big pet food companies that
Uh-huh.
we have traditionally recommended. But we recommend them because we have a lot of history with them and we know the formulations and we know that there are boarded nutritionists behind these
Hmm.
foods. And then we don't know about these other foods. And we do know that a lot of them don't have a boarded nutritionist on their staff.
Hmm.
And some of the foods that's coming out on the market, we know are not healthy foods. They
Hmm.
are just good marketing
Hmm.
for pets. And it's but I think there's a general lack of trust for any big company now.
Yeah.
And so, we're kind of caught in the middle as the middleman who says, well, yeah, we studied nutrition. We know how the body
Hmm.
works. We know how these nutrients are necessary for different things.
Yeah.
And you have people out here that are, like you said, X is bad, but X isn't really bad
Yeah.
because X serves a purpose that you just don't put it in your food because you need a marketing hook.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. Yeah.
But the way that that is approached, I'm afraid that people end up thinking, and I know that people end up
Mhm.
thinking, that my vet doesn't know anything about nutrition. And that's just not true. I
Mhm.
mean, even if I, as a veterinarian, stuck my head under a rock and never wanted to learn anything new about nutrition, it's still built into physiology and internal medicine. And you can't avoid the fact that when you have chronic kidney disease, your diet should be phosphorus restricted,
Mhm.
things like this.
Yeah.
So that my vet doesn't know about nutrition is the wrong conclusion. And
Mhm.
I wanted to get to why it is that people are landing there. And I hear it from vets too. I don't know anything about nutrition.
Mhm.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I
you
do not
do.
believe you.
Yeah, you do.
I believe that you are bad at having the conversation that your clients want you to have. But let's be real. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not the right expectation.
Mhm.
It occurred to me last night as I was thinking about this. I wouldn't expect to have a meaningful conversation about biochemistry with a musician,
Yes.
unless that was something that they truly wanted to
Right.
talk about for some reason. And it's kind of the same approach is I can have a meaningful conversation with my veterinarian about my pet and medical needs and the nutritional ties to medical needs. But is it really fair to have ask my veterinarian to have a conversation that is meaningful to me about pet food marketing and myths and misconceptions?
Sure.
Sure, that, but you know, the 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 vast number of options and array of different strategies and approaches and being able to sort out what may or may not be meaningful,
Hmm.
especially when we're talking about an appointment that you've scheduled with your vet that's say 30 minutes long and you've already spent 28 minutes dealing with the thing that you came to the appointment for,
Right.
and then you go, oh, by the way, can I ask you about nutrition? Okay, if you get a 2-minute answer in that 2-minute window and aren't happy with how that conversation goes,
Hmm.
then that's the wrong way to have that
Right.
conversation.
Right.
And it's not the client's fault that that's what they're asking for because they don't have a resource, but it's also not the vet's fault that that's not going well
Hmm.
because that's not their job.
Hmm.
And so I came up with a resource.
Yep. You did. You did. It made me think about when you were talking about the marketing stuff, and I think a lot of people just don't even know some of the definitions of like organic
Oh yeah.
or, grain free or all natural. Well, all natural means nothing. It has truly no meaning whatsoever when you're looking at,
Well,
you know,
actually,
yeah.
hang on. So AFCO, you know about AFCO.
Yeah.
They're the
Hmm.
the body that sets rules
Right.
for states to adopt and
Hmm.
apply and implement. So there's a bunch of marketing buzzwords that don't mean anything
Hmm.
to AFCO, but natural actually is one of them.
Okay.
Except the definition is far broader than most people imagine it to mean. Um, so I'm going to paraphrase, but the natural definition per AFCO is something like things that came from a plant or an animal or the earth, but are not chemically synthesized. They can be processed, they can be packaged, they can be homogenized, they can be hydrolyzed, they can be extruded, they can be lots and lots and
Yeah.
lots and lots of different processes. So as long as it is not a part of being chemically synthesized in a lab.
Oh my gosh.
And so really you can take a whole lot of stuff that feels like ultra processed, major quotes on that one,
Uh-huh.
um, food items that you wouldn't consider natural, and they actually do meet the technical
They'd
definition
made the
of
technical
of being
definition of
natural.
it. Hmm.
Um, but that said, yes, I absolutely agree that it's usually being used as a word to imply wholesomeness.
Yeah. Well, I was at a women's trade show one time, and of course, there's somebody there trying to sell some kind of makeup or potion or lotion or whatever. And she says, "Oh, here it's all natural." And I went, "Look, poison oak is all natural, but I'm not going to apply it to my face."
Right.
So this really doesn't have much meaning to me. If you tell me now, organic has a very much more definitive meaning
Mhm.
in rules to follow and things. But sometimes you just kind of wonder if we have muddied the waters so much that almost none of this has good meaning truthfully anymore.
Right, and there's no way to know which terms have a meaningful meaning and
Hmm.
and which don't, which are just left open to interpretation
Hmm.
according to whatever the marketer wants to
Yeah.
inspire.
Debbie Boone here. I want to take a quick break and thank you for listening to The Bend. As many of you know, I am a trainer, speaker, writer, and consultant working to make life better for the folks in the veterinary profession. If you're a practice owner or manager, you've felt it. Team burnout, difficult client conversations, and the constant pressure to do more with less. That's why I wrote Hospitality in Healthcare, the culmination of my 40 years of peopling in vet med. It gives you a clear, practical way to elevate the client experience while making work feel better for your team, not harder. If you're ready to lead a practice that feels as good as it performs, you can find the book wherever books are sold. Now, let's get back to my guest on The Bend. You think about some of the stuff that's marketing, and I watch a lot of the commercials with my marketing mindset on and go, oh my God, this is really good. Because a marketing person knows to reach the emotion of
Mhm,
people. So there's, it doesn't have to be factual. It doesn't have to be, this is, quality nutrition and this is like veterinarians are so scientific minded. They're like,
mhm.
this is why it's good. But they're reaching an emotional thing that says, you're a good pet owner if you feed this.
Right, and it's such a it's an intersection that's just ripe for that angle
Hmm.
because you have your pet that you love so much. They give you unconditional love and they entertain us and all of these things that they do in our life. And there's the what you feed them. Food is love,
Hmm.
in addition to it needs to be medically correct and appropriate so that you
Hmm.
support them as well as possible.
Hmm.
So, of course, this is something that we can appeal to emotions on.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about the platform because I think veterinarians will go, "Oh, yay, we have a resource," and it's legit. That's the other thing too is that you have a person behind it who has vast knowledge of a very challenging subject. I remember just making a comment one time on a Facebook post where somebody was talking about feeding their dog and that dogs were carnivores. And I went, dogs are omnivorous. And that's all I said. I made no comment about food. Oh my Lord, I had been attacked. You are a veterinary management guru and you're in the pocket of pet food and this is all you care about. So I laughed because I called Kara Burns, who's a friend of mine. I went,
Uh-huh.
Kara, did something change in the 20 years since I graduated with the BS in animal science about dogs? And she said, no, they're omnivorous. I went, okay, I'm
Mhm.
right. He's an idiot. I'm moving on. But there's such a
You don't
strong
need to call Kara.
emotion, right?
You
Yeah.
don't need to call Kara to
No,
confirm that.
no. Well, I just was, I wanted to make sure that that I was right, and I was like, okay, I don't live in the nutrition space, but I was pretty sure I knew that much.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. So yeah, but that's the kind of thing that I think the general practice veterinarians are dealing with a lot whenever they try to coach people towards quality nutrition and the reason behind the nutrition, and then they just get these, like conspiracy theories
yeah,
that are out there. Like, geez, Louise, who has time for that? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so what I did with Full Circle Pet Nutrition is I went back, part of my theme and how my brain works is I want to start with basics. If you ask me a question about how something works, I'm probably going to give you a quick biochemistry lesson to orient you. But in this case, I didn't go back to biochemistry, but there's this concept called the circle of nutrition. And it just has these 3 points on it and arrows interconnecting them. And it says that it's what tells me that I can't answer most of the questions people ask me about nutrition without first asking them questions
Right.
about the pet, the diet that we're talking about, and the environment or the person doing the feeding. And it occurred to me that part of the reason for the frustration with the nutrition conversation is that when we ask a veterinarian about nutrition, they're answering it from the one of those three perspectives, from the pet, from the medical knowledge about what that pet needs,
Mhm.
with knowledge from the diet. But they're not they're generally usually not taking into perspective that third item that is the client and the environment that that pet really lives and functions
Mhm.
in. And it doesn't give a whole lot of credit to what that client needs and wants from their pet's diet. And back again, that's not a whole lot of business of the veterinarian
Hmm.
to get real deep into that. But it occurred to me that we could then take the input of the veterinarian to fill that spot because it's absolutely essential and it is never going to get replaced. I am not going to say, I can teach you how to make choices about your pet's food without input from your veterinarian. That
Hmm.
would be stupid. But we take that information, their zone of genius, and put it into this process. And we work through it just so that we can sort, organize, and prioritize what matters most in each of those three components. And then we can use that to build what I call that person or that pet's own personalized pet nutrition guide. That means that they get to take what they consider most important about pet food to them. I want it to be organic. I want to be able to put it in a pouch and feed it for agility treats. It has to be really high value because, they need a reward when they do the special thing. It needs to be modified in this, and this way medically because the pet has this condition and that's what that dictates. And it needs to provide obviously complete and balanced diet and life stage and all of the rest of the things.
Hmm.
But when we teach the client to recognize each of those components as important and then merge them all together into what am I actually going to do about it? I can teach the math that it takes to compare pet foods and things like that. That's
Hmm.
not that big of a deal. I can teach the ingredient definitions and the myth busting and that sort of thing. And so by the time they get done, they've sorted out the emotional associations that they have with food and what really is a more objective priority for them and their pet.
Hmm.
And they can use that to make their own great choices so that they can be confident that they're supporting their pet having the happiest healthy life, and they get to have the peace of mind that they actually know what they're doing and
Hmm.
know what to do next.
Hmm.
Because like you said earlier, something's going to come up. That diet formulation is going to change, the pet's going to develop a medical condition, or oops, he got overfed, so now we've got to start a weight loss program, or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
Okay, that becomes not a big catastrophe that we have to then go back to the vet, revisit, and wring our hands and do a bunch of research over. We just go back and update this living document with this more information, and we move on with whatever our next
Hmm.
decision is.
Hmm. This is really helpful. When you were talking, it made me think about the number of times, even as the practice manager, because we get involved in everything,
Yeah, you
that
do.
that people would say, oh yeah, they'd come up to the front desk and I would be standing up there and they go, Debbie, I don't know what I'm going to do. Dr. Whitley told me that such and such needed to lose like 5 pounds, but he really loves getting these treats every night when I come home, or this, we sit on the couch and we share a pup cup with each other,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And so there was such an emotional, I said, well, then all you have to do is substitute with
Yeah.
something that is healthier than that. So we kind of keep in your mind a list of green beans and
Mhm.
carrot slices and the things that are good for the pet, that people still get that emotional little jolt where they
Oh,
get
yeah.
to give a gift and the pet is just so happy and loves it. Um,
Yeah.
my
We need to
dog,
keep those things.
yeah, I mean, blueberries are the thing in my house. Frozen blueberries, and that Bichon, he will sit there and look at you and look at the refrigerator and look at you because he knows they're in the freezer. And sure enough, does he get blueberries? He does get blueberries. For a little while, he was getting cherry tomatoes until it started to turn him orange across his mask.
How
And I
funny.
went, oh gosh, too much, too much beta carotene. There he is. He's turning orange. So yeah, but boy, he loves a cherry tomato too. But those are
Yeah.
the kind of things that you have to take into consideration. A lot of times is the emotional connection that food and people have and with their pets, and certainly absolutely as training tools for food-driven animals. I mean, how could we possibly train them without finding some kind of treat? But even, you know, as part of the emotional bond that people have with their animals and the rhythm of their day. And
Yeah.
that's the other part of it too.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I think any advice that says that you have to stop giving treats or stop doing the thing that matters, it's just, I may as well say you have to, operate without oxygen.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. It's going to get dismissed because it's not realistic.
Hmm.
I clearly haven't been listening to you about what's important, so why should my advice matter?
Hmm.
But yeah, we can usually come up with some way to keep what's important while making the thing that matters also
Right.
work.
Yeah.
In my own dog, it was a 1-year-old German short-haired pointer with no manners that I had just adopted, and he was motivated as heck, which was nice, but he needed so much training that I quit feeding him meals because he got his
Constantly.
entire calorie
Yes.
intake as rewards for not
Yes.
doing bad things.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, when I got Tucker, he was 18 months old and a retired show dog, and obviously unneutered. And because of COVID, I couldn't find a veterinarian for another like 6 months that could
Uh-huh.
get him on the schedule to neuter him. So he wore diapers in my house for a long time. But he was really getting a lot of training treats because you're right. He came from a kennel with 8 dogs who just kind of ran around the house. And so he didn't have any manners and he didn't know, he walked on a leash, but always like he was in a show ring. So animation rather than a pleasant walk. So we have done a lot of work with basic obedience. And you're right. I would cut his kibble down because he was getting way more treats than he was going to blow up. And
Mhm.
yeah, and he loves food. Really, really loves food. Um, so how are veterinarians and clients accessing the tool? Is it launched? Are you ready to roll?
I have launched one time, so
Okay.
or earlier this year, and I am currently in progress with my first round of participants. It is so much fun. I am I, you probably can tell by now, I'm kind of an open book, and I've just been really straightforward with this group and said, you all are my guinea pigs. I am, charging, really, really low amount for what you're going to get out of this. I guarantee there will be hiccups. I will probably not do some tech things right, but I will promise I will pretty much say yes to everything you want and um, make this a really great experience for everybody. And they've been so fun. Um, and they literally just know that, "Oh, yeah, Amy screwed that up again. Okay, we'll fix it." And it's fine.
It's all
But,
good.
yeah, we are, we have worked through, we did a session on just kind of an I introductory to this
Right.
process
Hmm.
and what mattered and what was meaningful. We did a session on, um, taking your vet's input and integrating it into your guide. We've actually completed 2 sessions on diet, a lot because that has just so much myth busting
Hmm.
to do and things to clarify and details that people want. And so I knew we'd have to spend some more time on that. The Thursday we're talking about the client aspect, the what's important about you and integrating that into the plan.
Hmm.
And then next week I think will be our last session where we're wrapping it all up and tying it into how do we turn that into making a choice about using that synthesis that we've done.
So I'm so curious about this. So your clients, first of all, I guess, how did they find you? Were these people that were former clients um, or were they referrals and how many people do you limit these are like classes. So you're kind of taking
Yeah.
a cadre of people like a
Yeah.
mentoring program and taking them through this diet mentoring to help them choose the best food for their pet
Well,
and
okay,
themselves.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so once again, I am a one-woman show, and
Hmm.
at this point, I'm doing my best, but I am absolutely sure that I could use help in my especially my marketing department. But I put I reached out to my contact list from my clinical nutrition practice to my former clients and all of my ref vets to say this is what I'm doing, this is what I have. Um, you're welcome to come and join me. And a couple of my old clients joined. I also just did some, Facebook and Instagram,
Hmm.
LinkedIn advertising, um, asking people, if you're interested in being with me at this stage of things,
Hmm.
let's do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I am sure there is more to come on the better marketing front from
Oh,
me,
well.
but
We're trying to
it's
help you out a
all,
little bit here on the bend today
yeah.
and can certainly share
But
this episode out. But I find this is, and so how many people do you limit it to? Like 10 or?
yeah, I wanted to limit this to a specifically small group.
Hmm.
And so I limited it to 20 people.
Okay.
And I'm really happy with the group that we got. It's going really well.
Hmm. I love it. Do you find that people are surprised at some of the myth busting things that you teach them?
Yeah.
What give me what was their most the revelation, the biggest revelation that one of your clients said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea about that."
The discussion last week that came up, that somebody was most surprised about was the definition. It was another ingredient definition
Mm,
item, and I think um, it was either meat or byproducts or something like that. And I literally just read them the definition from the AFCO manual,
mm-hmm.
and you know the the gist of it is that, when we say byproducts, people think of the nutritionally worst parts of an
Yeah,
animal.
like beaks and
So
feet.
beaks and feet and feathers and hair and
Yeah.
horns and all of those things, turns out, are specifically excluded from the definition by AFCO. And so byproduct generally means things that don't enter the human food chain. Well,
Hmm.
we're not eating liver and kidneys not because they're nutritionally bad for us, but because
There's
of
just not
culture
much of
and
a market
preference.
for it. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not because, something bad would happen to us
Right.
if we ate them.
Yeah.
So, it becomes a sustainability thing if we aren't using those items in the human food chain, but can successfully, safely, and effectively and do a
Hmm.
good job feeding them to pets, then cool, because that's fewer animals that we then have to sacrifice to feed pets.
Hmm.
And I think that's a point that gets overlooked
Hmm.
when we think that byproducts are, specifically terrible items.
Right.
We've also additionally got manufacturers who are marketing to- using that byproducts are bad angle, but
Yes.
then at the same time listing and naming specific byproducts in their ingredient list. So
Uh-huh.
beef liver, beef heart, these sorts of
Yes.
things will show up in that same.
But they
And
just
so,
name them differently
yeah.
instead of calling them like a group of like when they group them together, I guess they group them as, byproducts. But when
Mhm,
they go, oh, heart, liver, kidney,
mhm,
lung,
yeah,
yeah, they're listed out, but they're still just the byproducts.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that still just underscores how important it is that a manufacturer knows what's going into their formulations,
Yes.
because I can imagine that if I were a distributor of pet food ingredients, I could have, byproduct A that was a mixture of, I don't know, livers and hearts, and that has one specific nutrient profile.
Hmm.
Or I could sell byproduct B that is, lungs and some fat or something.
Hmm.
And that those still go on the list as byproducts,
Yes.
but nutritionally, those are going to be very different.
Yes.
And so, like any other ingredient, it becomes really important for that manufacturer to know which one is coming in, what the nutritional specifications of them are, and make sure that I'm getting the right one every time it shows up at my
Hmm.
plant.
Hmm. Yeah. It's just
So,
more complicated than people think.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I try to teach that nutrition comes down to, I'm sorry, that quality, which does not actually have a definition.
Hmm.
It means whatever you want it to mean.
Hmm.
So, my definition is food safety and nutrition. And so that's one example of how quality control in
Yeah.
pet food really is meaningful, is screening ingredients.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think, you think about food safety, and I grew up in the restaurant business. So I am hyper vigilant about E. coli and salmonella and the listeria because I you learn that in food
Yeah.
service. But we see so many of these fresh pet products being recalled because of contamination. And again, that goes to like, where are they sourcing products from? And is that safe for your animal? And do you know 100% every single time that they're going to this company is really going to be adamant about getting the safest products for your pet?
Yeah.
So it goes beyond how many calories are in it or what, if it's organic, but it can be organic and still be
Oh
contaminated.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, even in the grocery store where we buy our food, statistically, something like 60 to 70% of our meat, our chicken, or
Yeah.
whatever, depends on which item affects which
Hmm.
you're talking about, it is contaminated with potentially harmful bacteria.
Absolutely.
So we should just assume that it is contaminated
Yeah.
unless we do something like cook it.
Yeah.
High pressure pasteurization is coming a long way and being applied effectively in
Hmm.
some by some manufacturers. And so I don't want to imply that all diets who aren't kibble or canned are not doing these things well.
Hmm.
Some of them are, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think like you said, cooking things and contaminating, cross contamination, and this is particularly dangerous for going back to the human side of this. If you have people who are undergoing cancer treatment and they're immune
Mhm,
compromised, really need to be careful about what they're feeding their animals. And we see
mhm,
this a lot with raw diet, is because they're fragile,
mhm.
and maybe if you were young and 20 and completely healthy, you would kind of have a little GI upset and move on from some of these, but this could really cause great harm to people who are immune compromised in a
Yeah,
household. So
yeah.
it's if we're going to live with pets, we have to understand that we share a germ pool, and
Mhm.
we have to pay attention to that and who's in the household.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
if we're adding potentially pathogenic bacteria to the dog's face,
yes,
then everywhere the dog's face goes
right, which
is
is usually in your face, on your hands. Yeah, are going to be
yeah.
contaminated too. Um, so I'm curious is I guess we'll call them the class that you have.
Mhm.
So they graduate
Yeah.
and then you start a new class. How often are you training classes? You do them do they last a week? Do they last 3 weeks?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've run this cohort as a 6-week program.
Okay.
I will plan on doing the same thing again in the fall.
Okay.
I'm gonna do some other work over the summer
Mm-hmm.
and work on marketing,
Yeah.
actually. Um, further future stuff is I want to also be able to offer people a way to continue to be working together. I don't want to just say, here's your personalized pet nutrition guide, bye.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm planning on rolling out some kind of a membership where we can meet monthly and
Mm-hmm.
brainstorm and troubleshoot things as they come up.
Mm-hmm.
I still get asked a lot about if I'm doing individual nutrition consults, and the current answer is no, because I'm doing this and I really want to get this out to the people that don't have a resource.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I really think that there's a ton of value in doing those two things side by side. For example, I have this one client and patient pair that really sticks out to me is Kay and her dog Shadow. Shadow is a patient of an internal medicine colleague of mine, actually my vet school classmate Ryan Garcia, and he Shadow had some chronic GI disease, and came Kay and Shadow came for a nutrition consult. And she's one of these clients that is absolutely on the ball. She's got a log of everything that is relevant. She's asking all the right questions. Everything she says and does makes sense. Um, And she came with a bunch of questions about lots of different things about all of the all of the potential strategies for GI disease and all of the marketing stuff that comes from the pet food world and, how they intersect specifically for her dog. We built Shadow a customized nutrition plan and answered all of her questions. Shadow did great, had a bunch of improvements on follow-up. But what was really interesting about this is I saw her back in person and did a couple of phone and video chat, email follow up kind of things. But she kind of dropped off my radar. But what happened? She actually didn't drop off my radar because then Ryan started calling me or emailing me. And what was happening is she was just asking her nutrition follow up questions to him. And then he'd get back in touch with me. And that's fine. I like Ryan. So it's fun to catch up. But it kind of stuck with me that at the time I chalked it up to I think it was thought it was her just being efficient. I've got to go see Ryan anyway, so we'll do all the things then. But in retrospect, I think it was something different. What I think she was doing is telling me that she didn't actually want more of what I was giving. Meaning, it turns out that I have two different populations, as you referenced,
Mhm.
and one of those populations is clients who have pets that have a bunch of medical diagnoses that have pretty specific nutritional needs. And their main focus is I just need to figure out what I can feed that meets these needs and doesn't make anything worse.
Mhm.
And they don't usually have a lot of additional feelings. Um, and I'm going to describe two extremes, and everybody's on the
Sure.
spectrum somewhere
Yeah.
in between. But they want a recommendation. So it's just like any other specialty consult where I'm here for your recommendation specialist. Let
Mhm.
me know what you recommend and I'll do that. So when I went through my nutritional assessment and gave this detailed printout and this, summary of here's your recipe and here's how you do it and here is the exact plan, they go, "Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I wanted." Even though Shadow did great on our plan, that wasn't exactly what Kay wanted in that case because she had some elements of my other group of patients, my other population, which is pets that tend to not be as medically complex, but have this owner who's really interested in making sure that what they're doing is the best thing to support that pet. And they're sorting through all of this swirling sea of information
Mhm.
about pet nutrition. They may be doing kind of actively seeking that by doing more and more research, not really realizing that more research isn't the answer. It just kind of generates more
Confusion.
more more volume to this swirling sea.
Yeah.
And what was happening is every time I answered all of the questions she had, that was cool. That was she was satisfied for at the time, but then more questions would emerge and we'd have to go back and repeat. So to that end, that was where what started giving me the impression that this was a group that didn't want answers to specific questions. They needed a guide, they needed help navigating. They wanted to be able to do this on their own,
Mhm.
but recognizing that they can't do it on their own with the the approach that they have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of act as a tutor and a coach, and then give
Mhm.
them the knowledge to go into decision making outside of having to call you every single time that they want to make a change or look at something new, or as something new comes on the market, they can go and they can parse out some of the
Yeah,
things that you've taught them on their own, which gives them a lot more confidence in making decisions when they're standing in the pet food aisle, looking around, or
absolutely.
the treat aisle, or
Yeah. Because
thinking about
really,
those,
how overwhelming is it to stand in that aisle,
you know,
take on the perspective of a pet owner who
yes,
doesn't have the background that we have and go,
right.
"Oh my god." And if you look at that wall, even objectively from our eyes, there is nothing concrete on any of those packages to be able to decide this is a high quality item. This is what I would want to feed my
Right.
pet. And
Yeah.
so people latch on to anything that seems like it makes sense, even
Hmm.
if it's just marketing words.
Just marketing. Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, Amy, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I think that you're going to have a lot of demand for it. That people are going to the explorers, right? These are our explorer clients, and they want to
Absolutely.
know. And I feel like a lot of times, we're so pushed in general practice, and in other situations to that our clients come in with the thing that we want to see, and we have time for the thing, but then we don't have time for the other thing that happens. So while I'm here, kind of thing that pops up, and it always does.
Mhm.
So I feel like, having a resource like this that we could say, you know what, we really are pushed today to explore this, but I have a really great resource for you, and let's turf you over to this resource because they can tell you're going to have a lot of questions, and
Oh yeah.
and this is the kind of thing I think you would really enjoy because you're a learner.
Yeah.
um Years ago, Marion Von de Lindy, who I absolutely love as far as a communication coach, said, people would come in and they would have their reams of printouts, and we would go, oh, and think, oh my gosh, what have they come up with off the internet? But she would just say, I'm so glad you want to learn.
Yeah.
And that's your people. I'm so glad you want to learn, folks that really just want to do the best and feed the best for their pets, but they want to be knowledgeable about that. And there's not a good resource for them to become knowledgeable. I think veterinary medicine, we have a lot of good resources, and many of them
Absolutely.
are provided by the pet food companies, but they're the ones who've been researching it for 60, 70 years. And so
Yeah.
we have that available to us. But the general population is just, as you said, being bombarded by the marketing and walking to that line of food. For me, I'm familiar with the brand of food. I've fed it for dogs for 40 years. I've never had a problem with it. This is what my dogs eat.
Mhm.
And trying other foods over the years, like, it became a GI disaster. So I'm like, no, we're not going there. But other people don't have that experience, and they don't see what I've seen too, when people are feeding random foods, and then we get the fallout from the food because we're seeing a lot of nutrition. The coat looks bad, the uh, stools are unformed, and we're getting them on the medical side of it because they're fed something that sounded good, looked good, the
Mhm.
package looked good,
Yeah.
on the shelf. So I
Or
think
the
that,
net result is I've changed diets a whole bunch of times and none of it's helped and nobody knows why.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for this, and that's why when you I saw this post on LinkedIn, I went, oh, we've got to have a conversation. And so I really, really appreciate your time today and sharing what you're doing with us on the Bend. And we will put a link to your information in the show notes. We always do, so people can find you. And you're certainly, when this comes out, I'll let you know. Come out on LinkedIn, and it comes out on Facebook and Instagram. But feel free to share it with anybody that you want to share it with, because the more people that see this, I think the better off we will be as veterinarians too, because we have, knowledge is power, and an educated clientele is really helpful for us. I think they become better pet owners the more knowledge they have.
Well, and not only that, I think that when we have this conversation that goes badly, that ultimately undermines all the trust that we have built with that
Yes.
client over that pet's lifetime or over multiple pets' lifetimes.
Hmm.
And when that matters is in that minute of crisis when something gets rushed to the back and you just need that client to say, yes, do it, right?
Hmm.
But if we've had enough of those tense moments where I just didn't like how that thing went, I didn't feel like they heard me. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like they know this matters. that moment becomes a little bit more of a question mark, or they end up at a new vet where they don't have any relationship long term
Right.
either.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about nutrition, it's
Mm-hmm.
about trust and building a relationship with that
Mm-hmm.
team that supports the overall general health care of that pet. And
Yeah.
how awesome is it when you have those clients that just walk in the door and it feels like they're home, just
Mm-hmm.
coming home to say hi to the friends and family, and it's, oh yeah, I'm here, do what you need to do.
Yes.
It's such a more relaxed feeling
Yeah.
for everybody. The
Yeah.
the team knows it, the pet knows it, the client knows it,
Mm-hmm.
that everybody's on there doing their best. And if something doesn't go perfectly, okay, then
Yeah.
it wasn't meant to go perfectly today.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
just it makes life so much better
Oh,
when
100%.
things flow like that.
It
And
does.
I see this nutrition thing as such an obstacle to that
Yeah.
flow that it doesn't need to be there.
Right.
But if we can fix that and put things back into flow, then nutrition then becomes a thing that we bond with our teams
Mm-hmm.
over, when we build
Mm-hmm.
relationships over.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I feel like we should send our CSR team to your class. I think it would really help them at the front desk when people were
I
calling up. I read all this about this food and, oh my
I
gosh.
I absolutely have aspirations of doing a modified version of this for veterinary teams.
Oh,
So
good.
stay
Good.
tuned.
Yes, that'd be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Well, I want to say thank you again. And we'll have your information, Dr. Amy Fargas, and all her full circle pet nutrition information up. And I really appreciate what you're doing for Vet Med. I think this is a great bend.
Thank you.
COVID bent you a little bit, but we really appreciate the fact that it bent you in this direction. I think it bent a lot of us in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, no kidding. I
Yeah.
do also have, I keep a priority list for people that are interested and want to hear from me, want to know when the next
Mhm.
round of things is coming up. So I'll send you the link. People can join my priority list as
Okay.
clients to get
Okay.
that version of things. Veterinary teams can also join as veterinary professionals, and they'll get a different spin on this and some
Wonderful.
resources to share with clients.
Oh, that's very exciting. Very exciting. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today with Dr. Amy Farkas and the nutrition talk, which we are typically a little afraid of sometimes in practice. And I think she's taken a lot of the fear out of it. And I certainly think that she's offering a great service to help educate clients in the right way. And that's exactly what we need them to be. So thanks again. And thank you for everyone who listened to this episode of The Bend. Please share it with your friends and family. Again, my name is Debbie Boone, and I am the host.